Okay, so let me give you an update. So yesterday morning we had one member of the management team tested COVID positive. He had had 4 close contacts, 2 of whom were players and 2 of whom were staff. So we immediately isolated that group. They went into self-isolation. We then surge tested the whole of the rest of the tour party, both lateral flow and PCR tests. All of those tests came back negative, apart from one player who returned what's called a single gene positive, which in other words is a very low level positive. But just out of caution, we then isolated that player and all of his close contacts, and we were then advised by our medical advisory committee that we had to test that individual again today, which we've now done. Thankfully, that test came back negative. He has to test again tomorrow, and if that also comes back negative, then he and all of his close contacts can be released back into the bubble, and they would then be available for selection for the game that we've announced tomorrow night against the Sharks.
Thanks, Ben. Ben, in the statement it says that you're doing tests today and tomorrow, and those will determine whether you're able to fulfil the Sharks fixture. What has to happen for that game to be played? Does everyone in the Lions camp have to come back negative?
No, so the individual that tested positive, who we retested this morning and has now tested negative, that individual has to test negative so that he and all of his close contacts can be released. At that point, you have enough players available to fulfil the fixture.
As Managing Director, have you addressed the players today to reassure them of their safety and just sort of, if you like, reinforce the fact that you're doing everything you can to keep them safe?
We have constant dialogue. We have constant dialogue with the players and with the staff to make sure everybody is aware of what's going on. And if anybody had any doubts or any issues they wanted to raise, they'd be able to come to me or any part of the management team at any point. So that dialogue is constant.
One other point that was made in the statement was said that no team other than the Sharks could meet the bubble conditions to play Saturday's game. Presumably, therefore, they're not allowed to bring in any reinforcements to their squad. Is it fair to ask them to play 2 games in 4 days with the same group of players?
So you're absolutely right. They are the only side in the country that's able to meet the really strict protocols that exist. That's because they've already been living in a bubble. In terms of playing that number of games in a short period of time, look, that applies to us as well, doesn't it? We were already scheduled to play a fixture on Saturday, albeit against the Bulls originally. I can't comment specifically on the Sharks situation, but what I can say is, certainly from our side, we have absolutely fantastic medical and strength and conditioning teams in place here. They work extremely closely with the coaches, and if there was any doubt from a player welfare standpoint that the game should proceed, it wouldn't be happening. Now, I'm sure that's also the case in the Sharks, but I'm not as close to their camp as I am to the Lions camp.
How many people aren't fully vaccinated?
I don't think we're going to get into a conversation about who isn't vaccinated, but I just make the point again that the very high majority of the party are double jabbed.
Can I just ask them, the other positive case yesterday, have they tested positive again?
No, the case that tested... So the member of management tested positive. That is a genuine positive. So that person and the close contacts associated with that person are isolating. The other one that was positive, which was a single gene positive, has now tested negative, and we're going to do another test tomorrow to confirm that that person is negative.
And very briefly, how long will they have to stay in isolation, the positive case?
The first positive case, so they stay in isolation according to the recommendation of our medical advisory group, and we have meetings with them coming up to just determine that.
Are you there? Okay, it's Alex speaking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Sorry to the draw there. Just a couple of factual things. Just following on the who's available. Does that mean that all the players are available to select? If the one player is clear again tomorrow, will all the players be available apart from the 2 who were the contacts of the original management positive case?
So that's correct, subject to the usual injuries and niggles, Owen. But yes, everybody will be available. But we are testing the whole of the tour party tomorrow again, just to be overly cautious, or extra cautious rather. And if anybody else were to test positive, then they wouldn't be available. But yes, everybody will be available, subject to injuries and so on.
discussions with the Sharks, are you assuming they'll field an almost entirely different 15, which is what we'd assume that the Lions would do?
Well, so our discussions are with the South African Rugby Union as opposed to directly through the Sharks, and then it's the South African Rugby Union that would have those conversations with the Sharks. I couldn't tell you what their plan is around exactly who they will field, because of course my focus has been on the Lions, but we've been given the assurances by the South African Rugby Union that the match can proceed and the Sharks will be able to put a side out.
Alex.
You bet. Hi, Alex from Mirror. Have you arranged this Sharks game because it's the right thing to do from a rugby point of view, or because you're contractually obliged to deliver an 8-game package for the TV contract?
From a rugby point of view. So we were, of course, scheduled to play a fixture on Saturday, albeit against the Bulls, not the Sharks. And we came into this country to play rugby matches, right? Not to sit in biosecure bubbles. So we want to play the matches so that we can prepare the side to be ready to take on the Springboks in the Test series. And that was very much the driver behind the decision to go ahead on Saturday.